All right, guys, today we are finally getting to the soil testing video series. I intend to do a lot. This will also create offshoot videos of different nutrients I'm adding to the soil. Also, uh, kind of forgive me here, my voice is just not doing well today. So I may have to take a few water breaks while I'm doing this video to keep that rawness out of my throat. And hopefully everything will work out here. So I'll go as far as I can with this video, and then we'll just keep creating as many videos as possible here to make sure I get the point across, that I try to do a good job explaining some things, because this is going to be the lifeblood of any deer management system. If you don't have the right stuff, you're not going to get the right result. So I'm going to discuss the results of the island first. Then we'll move to the main food plot as the series continues, because the island is a totally different beast than the main food plot. Hold on one second. I already need to take me some water. So we're dealing with two different animals here. All right, so this one is going to be the most difficult out of all the plots that I've got because of trees. If it wasn't for these trees, I could do a lot more work here, get results faster, and up the nutrition, see better deer, etc. But we're going to talk about the score that the island has gotten, and I also want to try to emphasize here that a lot of the old soil tests were based on chemical analysis of your soil. Now we understand that we need to do a living sample of your soil. Living is organics, which is the microbes and the bacteria. We need to see how much life is in your soil. So soil tests like, now I'm not downing these. Sorry guys. I'm not downing soil tests when I mention this, okay? But soil tests like Whitetail Institute and other companies that follow this same pattern. Oh, it's now starting to rain. Well, darn. I hope it don't run me out of here. They approach the chemical side of your soil. Unless they've changed, I haven't used them, but unless they've changed, they'll tell you, say, like, you need so much nitrogen, so much phosphorus, so much potassium, sulfur. They'll get you a pretty good chemical analysis report, which you can address those shortages in your ground, or lockups is what I would really prefer to call it, because it is there. You just have to get the right living material in your soil to get it out. But that is what I consider only a partial test. Because of what I'm doing here, I need a more advanced test. Now, these tests are only as serious as you are. So if you don't care about the biological part of your soil, you just want to throw out some 10-10 fertilizer and, just to draw deer in, have a good hunt, hey, that's fine. This video is going to be more toward people that are geared toward improving their property to grow bigger deer, hunt bigger deer, and also eat healthier deer. This soil that you invest in has got to give you great returns. So if you're more serious about this, then a test from like the Whitetail Institute may not necessarily be what you need. Now, I could be wrong. They may have changed since then, but everything I remember was chemical analysis only. So what I did was find a company that did something more serious. I wanted something to be gauged for bacteria, microbes, and the soil how it holds together, the structure of it. Is it favoritism toward roots? Is it not? You know, we're gauging the quality of the soil. That's what this test is intended for me. So I'm going to show you the island results, and we're going to try to discuss and what it's showing. Is there additional problems? What my goals are? And some of these personal goals I would really not recommend following, because I've got some ideas in my head that I want to run with this place, and if it doesn't pan out, I don't want you to end up having the same mistake, okay? But I will give you goals to shoot for that will work best for you. All right, so let's get into it here. And here is the island scorecard. So I want you to see that number. All right, my goal is to get that toward 30 or better. So obviously 12.99 is not exactly what I want to see. That's kind of on the lower end of their scale. I don't have a legend with me here today, and I'm going to explain why, but I'll talk to you in detail as I go through each of these where they do land. So we're going to start with, this is what I consider like the piping of your food plot. This right here, your soil pH, is the driver for how much nutrients your plants can take up. Boron treatments help override these acidity problems because it's boosting root performance. That's why I have to do a lot of treatments in here 2 times a year to try to help override acidity and to create more biomass under the ground and on top. Hold on a second, another drink break. Sorry about this, guys. My voice is just struggling. All right, so soil pH 5.3. That is not considered good. This is getting very close to being strongly acidic. So for those of you that are looking for better deer, bigger deer, that is the one I would recommend fixing. If you cannot afford to fix, you know, like manganese, copper, calcium, any of these over here, well, you're going to be fixing these two most likely. But the others, let's say you're not able to afford this, that is the cheapest route to go. Liming will give you the best results for the money, okay? I would recommend fixing that first. Then these others can flow better into your plants, and some of your shortages that show up can go away, and it helps to keep deer from practically eating cardboard as far as what you're giving them. So if you've got food plots showing up with all these different colors that other than green, you know, you've got some problems. Yellow, purple, if you find that everywhere, we got issues. So fix the soil pH. It's generally the cheapest option out there, and some of you are going to have to put out a lot of lime to fix it. My goal for the island is to get it to 7.0, anywhere from 6.8 to 7.0. To me, that's the home run spot for a lot of these nutrients. Once you start creeping past that, you start seeing a decline in a few of these nutrients. It's very subtle, but it's not enough to notice, but it can if you do tissue tests in plants. There's an even more advanced step than what I'm doing now, which I will do that advanced step later on. So if you can fix that, this score is going to go up. So the health of my soil will go up. That means the health of my deer will go up. Now we're going to talk about, also, by the way, if you have questions about this soil test here, because these can be a little more difficult to read for some people, and they are more advanced, you can leave it in the comments and I will do my best to answer these. So here, all right, the next issue, soluble salts. My number came back fantastic. So, hey, look, we got a check mark good for the island. If that is anywhere near 2 or higher, you've got some serious issues. We don't want to see soluble salts high at all. So that one scored fantastic. So that part of my soil is good. Excess lime rating. This can be found in desert type soils. Remember when I started this plot, and in the main plot, I told you this soil was white. It has been dead for a long time. And it was starting to mimic a desert. It's not bad. It's low, which means it's okay. But that should be a warning sign that this soil was dying. And yes, it still would have, it wouldn't have died in my lifetime completely, but, your trees, your woods, they're going to get sick. The nutrient flow here was bad, and of course the scores here were also bad, but we'll move on from there. All right, guys, this is the next important stage of any food plot, your organic matter. This number varies quite greatly depending on your location or where you live. If you live in the South, that number tends to average 2.5%. For those of you that live in the Midwest, that number should be 4% or more on average for soil organic matter readings. Out west, roughly the same concept, unless you're near one of the desert areas. Your organic matter there can be extremely low. We're talking 1% or less. So you have to be careful with that. Organic matter is money in the bank. You need to understand that that is the lifeblood of how this ground's going to start functioning. My soil test for the island is above average for the South. So we have 2 check marks that I don't think is all that bad. But 3.6 does not cut it when it comes to the system I'm running here. I need more organic matter. Organic matter serves many purposes in your food plot. First off, organic matter is largely known for holding moisture in your soil, because it looks like it's fixing to come a downpour, and I hope it doesn't run me out of here. So the higher you get that organic matter number, the more water you store in your food plot. That's why I want you to think of this as a bank account. The more you can put into your savings, the more returns you get. Or like a stock market investment. Same thing, the more you can put in, the more successful that company is, the better your returns are. Deer management is an investment, and they will reflect how much you're willing to invest. That's why this video is kind of more for the people that are really pushing for the best returns. So right now, I can hold roughly 3.6 inches of rain. It's not bad, but there's also another factor that affects my rainfall besides that organic matter, which is, I'm just going to briefly touch on this score right here. You need that, the closer to 100 you get it, the better off you are. That has to deal with soil properties, like if it's clay or if it's sandy soil. You guys can have a totally different score than me. I'm clay, but there's different subtle levels of clay. Sandy soil, you can have a pretty rough score. But that is also inducive of how well I'm taking care of my place. It affects the organic matter's function. For clay, one of the properties of clay is, especially the heavier clay soils, it creates a crust on the clay soil. That clay crust is caused by poor water filtration of your soil. The lower the organic matter score, the more crust that clay can develop. So when water is, filtering through your soil here, it drives down nutrients with it. It also can cause clay to explode aggregates in your soil, and then the clay covers that up as the crust that you see on top, which greatly kills off germination rates. It kills off plant growth speed because it creates a layer of almost like concrete across the top. The better your organics are, the less that crusting effect occurs. I have practically eliminated it. Up here, I am still in the process of eliminating the crust factor that occurs with clay. The only way to do that is to keep raising organic matter and or add worms to help create the soil more, or make the soil more porous. I got to have some bulldozing guys in here to keep that soil broken up. We don't want that crusting layer to form over clay. Guys that are in sandy soil, you don't typically worry about that because your soil is typically loose, and your biggest issue would be erosion, because that water will sink deep, take nutrients with it, and flush your soil out of your food plots. So we don't want that to happen. I'm starting to hear some rain. I hope it don't get bad here. I may have to retreat to the box. So organic matter. What is a goal for organic matter? Now, when I'm talking to you about the system I run, that refers to the mixes I use. So every year I'm tweaking mixes, I'm tweaking the system. I'm tweaking requirements that may press the ground to perform, or I'm releasing that pressure off the ground by changing the plant ratio mixes. So the system you run greatly affects your food plot outcome, especially early on when you're dealing with bad soil. If you already have a lot of nutrient lock in your soil and you're just pressing the daylights out of it with big plants, you're not going to get the results you want unless you dump a lot of fertilizer on it. So the system I run, I need more. This is not satisfactory. So what type of goal as food plotters that we can generally run and all of us be good? Your organic matter needs to be anywhere between 6 and 8%. Because once you get above 8%, you actually start affecting some of the nutrient flow like iron in your soil. So anywhere from 6 to 8%, you're going to hold 6 to 8 roughly inches of water in your soil. That's a huge bank, guys. So if you have a drought that lasts 8 weeks, you've got 8 inches of rain that's stored in your soil. Your drought resistance is going to go way up. Sorry about this coughing. I'm chugging water. It's helping. And you can see why it takes me so many video takes from time to time. But that water, actually, hold on, I've lost my train of thought here. Okay, organic matter. When you get it in that 6 to 8% range, that's what we need to strive for as food plotters. Your soil health assessment score will go up. Now, just because you have high organic matter does not mean that you have the healthiest ground around. You've only got one part of this puzzle put together. If you fixed your pH, your organic matter is up, you've only got certain pieces of the puzzle done. We have to put this whole puzzle together in order to see the results we want. So how do we raise organic matter? First off, we got to understand the plant side of things. When you see all that tall rye grow from my winter crop, and how thick and tall I've gotten it, especially in the main plot, I want you to imagine that that's only 30% of organic matter made. Where does the other 70 come from? The other 70 is roots and microbes and bacteria. All that together will give you the other 70% of your organic needs. So the stuff that I grow on top, which is like this clover, some of this rye that's still kind of left over here, your wheat, your oats. Now I'm preferring to winter blends right now. Your on top, anything on top is 30%. So when you see my main food plot and I just walk through caked layers of biomass, I'm only fixing a small portion of the organic matter. It will take a while to raise your organic matter in most cases, but once the machine that you built revs up, the organic matter starts coming faster. So up here at 3.6%, I have a ways to go. I would hope that my next test would show 4%, but it's probably not going to next year. It still probably would remain in the 3s unless I get better root growth up here, because I still have major root restrictions up here. Actually, there's another way you can affect your organic matter, which is worms. Worms is a big problem I've been harping about up here for a while. I just don't have the numbers I need. I walk through here, all through here, backside, front side, middle, doesn't matter. I walk through here pulling up pockets of plants, looking for worms. I was striking out until I got right here, and I burned that. So that worm may be gone. I mean, I was just not finding worms. So those guys are big time helpers when it comes to soil pH and the processing of organic matter. Worms actually love eating dead microbes. Why do you think they hang around your plant roots? They're not eating living root, they're eating dead microbes. So that, once you understand the function of how this system naturally performs, we're going to rev the engine up. We're going to make that function get on steroids and start producing. This soil still has, it's basically, I have just turned the key and the engine has cranked a couple of times and it's barely trying to do anything. Even though I'm getting pretty good growth up here, as far as the score and goals I want, this engine up here is sputtering when it comes to helping deer out and soil health. So by fixing roots, you want to stimulate roots. That's why I do boron treatments. I'm trying to speed up organic matter rates. That really helps roots to grow. Humic acid does the same thing. So look for fertilizers if you need root help that can stimulate your roots. So remember, your goal is to get this up there 6 to 8%. For the average food plotter, you may want to go a little higher than that, especially if you have high iron readings. You can throttle down your iron intake. I mean, iron is not going to cause a toxicity issue. But you can throttle down your iron intake by going higher than 8% organic matter. So you could shoot for 10, 11, 12% organic matter and build, and build. Your soil score will go up. Here's the next biggie. This number right here. When I talked about these soil tests in the past being practically chemical, this is the living part of my soil. How active it is shows up with this number. We want this to be at 120 at the minimum to show that this soil is at optimal living levels. So a score of 103 puts me in the marginal category. 60 is considered low. Anything 60 or below, you got some microbe and bacteria issues in your soil. Now you got to remember, this is what, my third year or 3.5 years. Hold on one second here. 3.5 years roughly of working this soil. So my soil health assessment score, even though I didn't take one earlier to base it off anything, I guarantee you it's higher because of the work I put into this place. I've removed a lot of big rocks, still removing a lot of big rocks. But the most important thing that I did was purchase seed that is coated with microbes and bacteria. I guarantee you that when I first started this out, this number would have been below 60. So how do we determine what this number is? Basically, when microbes are functioning with your plants, they actually go in and out of the roots. And they're telling the plants, I'll give you iron if you give me carbon. I'll give you nitrogen if you give me carbon. Microbes want carbon. It's like sugar to them. So when you have a more lively soil, that carbon trade is happening at a much higher pace and your score goes up. So as food plotters, if you're doing this type of testing, what is a good number for us to be at? I would recommend being above 250. You want the higher, typically the better. The highest number I've ever heard of is 1,047. That is absolutely gargantuan soil activity. I've seen it in the 5s. I would love to see my number in the 500s. I mean, that'd be perfect for me. So just because you hit 120, if you do if a living test like this, don't stop. That's like the bare minimum of optional or optimal for your soil. So this place did not score optimal, and it's pretty obvious by how the plants are growing. Last year when I started doing these pull tests, I had my first true evidence of microbes and bacteria. This soil, as far as the health of the soil, is literally just waking up. So the only way to raise that is to keep doing cycles of crops like I'm doing that have the microbes, support the microbes. There's actually nutrition in here that's lacking that supports microbes. So we need to make sure that we're actually catering to these guys. We want to make them as happy as possible. The happier they are, the more they thrive, the better results you get in your plots. So I want a reading of 250 or higher. The higher I get it, the better. 250 is my minimum. 500's fantastic. Okay, now here's the other part of the island that has scored very badly. Water extractable nitrogen. A lot of times you don't really think about this, but this is what's available in the soil. And when water passes through it, this is what we're releasing. This is signs of microbes working, what they have to feed off of, and different variants of nitrogen available. So your microbes and bacteria need ammonium and nitrate. That is what they turn loose to the plants to make them big, healthy, and strong. Anywhere near 2 is good. So I have one part that is good in here. This organic carbon is bad. This needs to be way higher. Most people will average about 130 to 140. So I do have a test that came back that scored in that average range. A couple of them did. This area up here is just getting going, so we have to fix what the trees have siphoned away. So we need more nitrogen up here. That's why I'm trying to do smart planting. If you need more nitrogen in your soil, you need to plant for it. The top 5 producers of nitrogen is, there's not really a particular order to this, but sun hemp, deer vetch, cowpeas, alfalfa, and clover is something you seriously need to look at. Also, in the wintertime, if you had high levels of winter peas, they can produce large volumes of nitrogen as well. So you're pumping it year round. That score will constantly go up naturally on its own. But if you do need to add nitrogen to your soil, you know, that's fine. But be aware, nitrogen itself is acidic. So when you're adding nitrogen, you can affect your pH. And if you use a sulfate nitrogen, you're still adding acidity because nitrogen itself is acidic. So even adding the word sulfate to it will not spare you from changing your pH. That's about the only one that won't save your pH. So right off the bat, this nitrogen score is not good. Basically it's almost barely existent. But I'll talk about this number here in a minute. We have some serious problems with nitrogen, and I'm going to stop the video once I get here because we're already over 30 minutes, and that may be boring you by now. But nitrogen, this number here can be a whole lot higher. The minimum that you would need, to me, is in the 30s to function properly. I would like to see that at 30, maybe 35 to 40 parts per million as a good, you're getting enough fuel in here to get these plants boosted. That helps with protein production. Carbon, there's different levels here of carbon. This is what the bacteria or microbes can munch on. The lower this number is, the worse it gets. So that means their food window is very limited when you're getting that low in your soil. That's what this number here can indicate. If this number here keeps climbing, that means the microbes are running out of food. So you have to feed your microbes with enough food to maintain the system. The more microbes and bacteria you introduce, the more food is needed for the system to run. Now, that doesn't mean, like right off the bat, I'm going to start having microbes starve or bacteria. It takes a little time for that to happen, but that's just a warning sign that you need to get this number higher. Organic nitrogen carbon ratio, I still want that number higher. I would like to see that number, I think, over 100. No, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I don't want to misstate this. Oh, geez. My mind just went blank. So just ignore what I said. I'll save this for the other part of the video. But this is the release that I am getting in my soil. 5.2 parts per million. That is what the plants have available to them. We got to get these numbers up. So nitrogen in the island is basically tanking. That is what these trees have sucked up and removed off of the soil. So I've only went down 1/2 of the paper here, and there's already a lot of numbers here that need to be fixed. pH, organic matter. I have a really good soluble salt score, actually almost non-existent. That's great. Excessive lime rating, that's not that bad. That's actually pretty darn good for this soil. The soil bacteria numbers are low, which is to be expected when you're doing plots for your first go around. The nitrogen is bad here, but the green level kind of suggests it's not. So why is it not? Well, you're looking at nitrogen pumpers. They're fixing it themselves, so it's only good enough for them for now. But if you stuck other plants in here like buckwheat that can't produce nitrogen, it's not as green. Potassium levels need work, so we'll get into that other part of soil testing on that. But this is just the first stage of this video. I'm going to cover the second half here. But if you're serious about growing better deer, this is going to become the lifeblood of your system. I would recommend doing soil tests every year. It is money well spent. You can track the progression of your soil, see what you're doing right, see what you're doing wrong. A lot of shortages can be tricky to manage. I've done 2 videos on reading plants. One's very basic, the other's more advanced. But I'm going to get into a mineral or a trace mineral in the soil reading that is going to be very difficult to figure out. Even fools me. So there's many ways that the soil can trick you. You know, it may, it's like, I need more iron. Well, it may not be iron. Okay, that's just a warning sign to you guys that things can be very difficult to spot. If you can't spot them, that's why we do these soil tests. We got to discover what we can fix. So this is just the first wave. I'm going to get deeper. If you have questions about soil tests, maybe the one I'm running might be a little difficult to read, or you're trying to branch out and find somebody that does a better job, we need to find companies that... Nice big dead limb broke out of there. Hey, more light getting in here. You need to find companies that test the living portion of your soil, not just the chemical. If all they provide you is nitrogen, potassium, this portion of your soil, and they show like organic matter, pH, but they don't do the living portion of your soil, you need to find somebody that does. That's just how serious are you about fixing your soil. The more the test, I hate to say this, but the more the test cost, the more serious you are typically about deer in general, about your food plots. I'm telling you right now, this gets really exciting for food plotters when things work out well. When you see your plants are just absolutely exploding, there's no deformities, you see what the true tonnage of your property can be, you have made a serious investment in your deer's health. Remember, the work that you put in is the investment that you're willing to do. The more work you do, the more return you get. That's why I have, with the land that I own and the deer that I get back in return is absolutely fantastic for what I put into it. Now I'm making a deeper investment. I want to bring back the booners that I had here a long time ago. It's already been 10 years since we had a booner in here or more. Actually, yeah, it's been about 10 years. The soil had degraded from constant hay use. Everything that I had put into it was gone. I'm working back to being that person again. I want these deer bigger. I want these deer better. I want healthy does. I'm not limiting myself to just bucks. Does are the driver of your food, of your management system as well. Without them, you can't get bucks. So I'm focusing on all deer that show up. I don't care if this deer's visiting. I want him to be the best possible. So this soil test right here is going to be the ultimate decider of how big I can get my deer. more tonnage, healthier tonnage. A plot that is in fantastic shape, and this is a 1/4 acre plot, can function anywhere 4 to 10 times, or actually higher than that, 4 to more times higher, depending on your soil conditions around your property or your property in general. Can function way more. You're actually, it's like a plot that, let's say you put a plot at 1 acre. That plot can perform like a 4 acre plot. You're trying to crank out nutrition here. That is the ultimate goal to get these guys going. And we're just starting with step 1. So that's the end of this video, and we'll get into more later. Have a good one.